Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a Safe Return to Judo webinar this morning. For those that don't know me out there, I am Joyce Hearn, Deputy Sports Director. I know quite a lot of yous on the call this morning, and hopefully by the end of it, I'll get to know some of the others. And I'm joined today with two other panellists, Andrew Schooler, who is Chief Executive at British Judo, Chief Executive Officer, and Colin McIver, the Sports Director. And between us, we'll take you through some of the work we've been doing around the guidance for clubs getting back to judo. And before we start, I'd just like to share a quote with you. I think it's quite pertinent at the moment. And that is, we're not all in the same boat, but we're all facing the same storm. And that'll mean different things to different people. But I think it's quite, pertinent as I say at the moment. So what's the objective this morning? Well, it's to provide information that will help clubs make a safe return to judo. And I mentioned before that we've been working quite hard to bring together some guidance for clubs and also some resources that will help you prepare for that return to judo when and if it's safe to do so. And this has all been done in using UK government guidelines and following the health and safety recommendations by their officers as well. And they will supersede anything that judo do going forward. During the webinar, I'm going to do some polls and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see a Q&A box, and that will allow you to ask some questions. And Colin McIver is going to look after those today for us. So I'm going to share the poll now. And I'd just like you to have a think. What is your main concern about returning to judo at the moment? So if you'd just like to start voting. Votes are starting to come through now. Thank you for that. Just a few more seconds more. Okay, not already voted. I'm going to end the poll. So be warned. Thank you for that. I'm just going to share the results with you now. And as we can see here, that safety, I probably expect that safety of our members or your members are your biggest concern. Now we will be using these poll results to help inform us further moving forward. And thanks very much. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andrew Schooler, our Chief Executive, and he's going to talk about some support that may be available for clubs out there. So over to you, Andrew.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. Hope you're all being safe and well. Just to give you a quick idea, that we've been working on a club grant programme with the areas and the trust to see if we can put together some funding to support clubs through the restart of the organisation and the sport once we get the ability to do so from the government. So you'll see here the sort of objectives that we've put in place here, how we're trying to encourage more members to come back, Obviously, making sure that our coaches are well trained and ready to come back and be able to have that ability to coach in a safe and environment. And then obviously, how do we actually get the resources to you, and hoping to help the clubs get resources in order to start back. So it's really important that we do that. Now, I'm saying it's still pending. There's a number of areas who have confirmed some funding that they would go towards that, but we're still waiting for that. We're also in discussions with Sport England to see if they can match that funding, and that will probably come through hopefully in the next few weeks. So once that's all in place, we will launch that. We're hoping to launch that as soon as the areas confirm all the funding. And also, in addition to that, when the government allow us to restart judo, and you'll see in the way there's a number of phases we have to go through. But at the end of the day, we are not allowed to do anything at the moment until the government allows us to do that. We'd had hoped that would be earlier this week, but that's not the case, and we're a bit disappointed with that. But we're hoping it might be a few days or a week or so before we're allowed to do that. But if you've any questions on that, we'll be able to send you some information. But in the meantime, it was just to give you an early warning that we are trying to put a little grant program together, supported by all the areas and the trust, and then trying to get that matched by Sport England. So hopefully we can get that going in the near future. I'll hand you back to Joyce.
Thank you for that, Andrew. We're now going to get into the sort of crux of the presentation today. We're going to start with, and this will be phase 1 return, and it's about helping you prepare for moving forward and opening up your venues. And here I'm going to show you some guidelines, and I'd like you to ensure that all your members, anybody involved in the club, are able to get access to these guidelines, because it'll be really helpful in maintaining a safe environment where everybody can work together. And I'll just give you a wee share of the guidelines at the moment. And this is the document that our marketing people have produced for us based on the information we've brought together. And that's the front. And this is, I'll just share the contents page with you, and you can see it's quite extensive. So we will be giving you advice on what the phased return looks like pre, during and post session. We'll be giving you some information down here that will give a sort of tick box document to give to your juniors, adults and parents, so they know exactly what the expectation is for them. There'll be some stuff around mat layout, first aid protocols, injury reports, cleaning guidelines, and also a few forms that I will discuss with you in a wee while. And we'll go through some of these sections briefly as we go through the presentation today. So that's the guidelines. I'd like to emphasize that all areas, both outside and inside the dojo, should be pre-prepared for everybody coming. So everybody's quite clear where they can go, where they can't go, and the distance. Now, we know the government's just changed the 2 metre rule to 1 metre, but that's minimum 1 metre, and British Judo won't change. We're still sticking with the 2 metres at the moment. However, once we've got more information about what the expectation is indoors, then we may adjust them, or we may decide that safety is so paramount that we need to stick with this 2 metres. Again, I'll just reiterate the fact that it's important that the members, parents, anybody coming into your dojo or the venue that you hire, they must have information to allow them to do this safely. And we'll talk about some of the things that we'll be asking people to do a little later on. There's many of you have been doing some great work out there at the moment online, so I know some of your players will be reasonably fit. However, for those that haven't done any judo or any fitness, I would advise that clubs ensure there's a low volume and low intensity return to the sport for those the majority that may have not been doing too much. So err on the side of caution. However, I do know that some of your players out there have been keeping really fit, and you may want to adjust what you do with them. But safety is paramount. And I'll just give you a wee kind of a look inside the document again. And inside the document, we will have a club assessment template that all clubs can use. And basically that just helps you, we'll put some detail in it, and this will help you look at the areas that you may want to, or you should be looking at, to ensure that everything's in place. And in this box here where we have in place, that'll be like a tick box for you to say, for instance, ensure signage is in place to enforce these measures, and you would tick in there and sign it, and you may need 2 signatures. And at the bottom, there should be a date and a signature of the head coach. So everything should be there in this document. You will get sight of this, so you should be able to have a look and see what's relevant to you within this risk assessment itself. So when we're looking at what we expect from clubs from an administration perspective, I'm just going to share with you the club declaration form that we will be sending out to the clubs. It will be on our website, and all clubs will be asked to sign this before they start back indoor practice. And I'll just give you, again, I'll give you a wee bit of sight of this document so you know what to expect. And it's basically, it's a club declaration form, and it just says that you'll ensure that the club meets British Judo and UK government guidelines in terms of social distancing and hygiene requirements. So just one club representative will be asked to complete this and send it back to the BJA. And this will be really helpful for us and for you. If we get any issues with insurance, then we're both aware, the club's aware, and British Judo's aware that you have said that you've put everything in place in order to make sure that everybody's safe in the environment, or as safe as they can be in your environment. So that's the club declaration form. If we then go on to the athlete COVID-19 indemnity form, now this form is for club players, not elite players. Elite will be treated differently, and Colin will talk about that in a little while. So the athlete COVID-19 indemnity form is basically just a form to check before they come along to judo if you can. If you can use this will be an electronic form that they can type into and send to you. If you have a facility where you can email them before they come along and get them to fill this in, basically just with the date, name, contact details, the fact that they have not been diagnosed or believed to have COVID-19 at that time, and they've not got any symptoms of COVID-19, and they've not been in contact with anybody that has it. It's quite self-explanatory and pretty easy just to type into the box, as you can see here. Now, if your club's not set up to use this type of electronic form, you can print this off and provide players with a collection of these to bring along with them. Alternatively, you can use your register time. So when they come into the venue, they provide the documentation and they sign a form to say that they are, as far as they know, COVID-free and not at any risk. So we'll ask that they complete this form when they come along to, either before they come along to the club, which is preferable, or when they get along to the club itself. And it might just be one form that they read and then sign a register beside it to say that they're COVID-free and not a risk.
Joyce, we've got a couple of questions that could perhaps take the opportunity to answer now. There's a question asking whether the document can be shared by village halls, and of course it can. Once the documents are published on the BJA website, they can be shared with every venue that you work with. There's another question that's concerned about multi-use community centres and how it will work. And you'll have to work with the community centre, our guidelines and their guidelines, and you'll have to meet with them. We hope that they will do most of the cleaning of the centre, and so that we will only have to deal with the judo-specific guidelines when we come to use it. Okay.
Okay, thanks for that, Colin. The other thing in terms of when we start talking about track and trace, or trace and track, people, it's actually track and trace. I get it back to front, sorry about that. It's important that the clubs maintain an up-to-date register. Now, I know most clubs already do that. That's good practice anyway. We would just like to sort of re-emphasise the importance of maintaining an up-to-date register to protect yourself against any issues with COVID. So if anybody, any of your athletes or parents that have been inside your venue contact us or have been in contact with COVID-19, then you have information when they attended and contact details for them. So I think this is quite an important thing to highlight. And of course, anybody coaching or any members in your club must ensure that they have valid BJA memberships and valid coach awards. And Colin will speak a wee bit about this later, because we have an extension for membership, and we've made allowances around revalidation for coach awards. But Colin will cover that a little later. So of course, people coming to your club are going to be travelling, and you'll be best placed to know how your own members travel to judo. Majority, I would think nowadays, outside London anyway, will be coming in by car, I presume. And it's just to ensure that when they're coming in by car, between the car and the dojo, that they make, ensure that they social distance from people based on the government guidelines at that time. And if they're travelling in the judo kit, which we're recommending at this point, that their judo kit's covered to ensure that they don't get any sort of COVID-19 droplets and bring it into the judo hall. In terms of personal items, we'll be asking anybody that comes into your club, to ensure that everything they bring in with them has been cleaned appropriately with disinfectant. And there's government guidelines on the type of disinfectants you can use. I think Dettol's a pretty good one. And that's their bags, any dummies they bring in. And some people are using teddy bears, I think, at the moment online. If you're using teddy bears, a word of caution. Teddy bears tend to harbour a lot of infection. So ensure if they're bringing anything like that in, they're thoroughly cleaned. They will, of course, be bringing water bottles, and it's good practice to bring water to, any sessions when you're going to practice any activity. So make sure anything they bring in is clean, and that's including themselves. Again, just reiterate, ensure anything that's coming into the dojo is clean, including the judo kit, the shoes, their hands. And as they come into the dojo or into the venue, we would expect, and we're recommending, that you have hand wash available, and you also have hand sanitizers where there's not a sink with water. We don't know what's going to happen indoors at the moment in terms of toilet facilities and changing rooms. However, we would still expect you to have hand washing or hand sanitizers available for people to ensure that they're, everything's clean. Face coverings, at the moment there's a recommendation when you're in public places or public transport that you wear face masks, and also indoors when you're coming into contact with people. Supermarkets is an example of that. At the moment, we don't know if they're going to ask for face coverings indoors, but if we're asked to ensure that people do wear face coverings, then we would expect that you abide by that. We're also asking you to inform your members to bring their own tissues. If they have a spillage on the mat, whether that's blood or water spillage, they're expected to clean that up by themselves. Although I would hope that clubs also have some tissues at hand if that's not the case. Clubs will be expected to have a first aid kit. However, it's good practice to ask your members to also bring their own small first aid kit, especially at this time where we don't really want to be sharing resources if we can. And that first aid kit, what we recommend to be inside that first aid kit will be contained in the document that we're sharing. In terms of signage, when we come to the environment, it's expected that clubs have signage in place, whether it's a 2 metre rule or a 1 metre rule at that particular time. Once we get back indoors, they expect you to have clear signage in the dojo, in the venue itself, and certainly in the changing rooms. Those of you that don't have your own dojo, which I would suspect the majority of you will be working with your venue to ensure that these are in place. And British Judo are going to provide some resources to help support you here. And then on our website, you will be able to get access to these. I'll just click into one of these documents at the moment. And basically it'll be a link that the club can go in and you can download these documents yourself. And this one here was produced by the Elite Performance Department and the EIS. And it's basically, what do you do when you suspect or there's a confirmed case of COVID-19 within your environment? And it's still very pertinent to clubs. And inside this particular document as well, it gives advice about a return to judo for anybody that's had COVID-19, sorry about that. And basically it just takes you through stage 2, 3, 4 and 5. Stage 1 is the stage before when they've contacted COVID-19. So that's just one example of the resources that will be available to you. You see we've got signage for 2 meters. This one here, I'll go into this as well. And this basically is just highlighting the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. And we'd expect you to share these with your members and have them clearly visible around your dojo. So there's quite a lot to take in here, I know, but we're doing our best to provide you with as much information and as many resources as possible. Again, I'm just reiterating, it's an important fact that any social distancing areas that you're using, rules that you're using, should be available in your social areas, your toilets and changing rooms, and during your session times. We would expect that you ensure that these signs are still there and they're still abided by. In terms of hygiene, before you go in, especially if it's your own dojo, before you go in, make sure that the facilities are clean. That's including the mats and of course running in the taps. The running of the taps is more to do with Legionnaire's disease, and the recommendations are 1 to 5 minutes. In our document we say 2 minutes, and hopefully that will cover, but it depends on the size of the building that you're in. But I think 2 minutes running your tap should help clear any Legionnaire's disease if your venue's been sort of lying empty for a long time. And this is, again, is all in their guidelines. In terms of ventilation, we would expect all training areas to be well ventilated. It's been well publicised out there by the health experts that where a room is better ventilated, there's less chance of contracting COVID-19, less chance of the spread of COVID-19. The other thing we ask you to think about is ensuring that you have plenty of pedal bins with tie bags inside them so that you can dispose of any tissues or any other waste that's gathered during the sessions. It's just about ensuring that everything's safe and everything's clean at all times. I've mentioned it before, ensure that the club has a first aid kit and any procedures, and we'll be sharing some recommended procedures with you within the guidelines document, that these are adhered to and they're available for everybody. So that's the environment and the venue. I'm going to hand over to Colin now to take you through the next part of today's presentation.
As Joyce said, we're following the government guidelines and the medical advice very, very strictly. So we have some clubs already that are already breaking government guidelines and holding sessions inside their dojos. Not only is this against the law, it's important that for judo that they don't start a wave of other clubs following suit. So it's really, really important that you stick to the guidelines. Judo clubs should not be open yet, and there is no excuse for holding sessions within the club. The recommendations are coming out. As soon as we get government approval, we'll be sending out these. We'll be putting them on the website shortly, so you'll be able to see them within the next couple of days, we hope. And it's important that you follow them. Joyce said earlier that elite sport, as the world-class performance plan players, are following a different pathway to return to training. They have published their own document, and that will also be published shortly when they're ready. Now, the definition of an elite athlete is someone who's on a funded programme of either UK Sport or Sport England. Other athletes that would consider themselves as performance players will still follow the club guidelines. Do you have control, Joyce? Yeah, I got it. Okay, so if you haven't already had a look, we've got the British Judo COVID-19 hub on our website, and this is where we'll be posting all the information. And as I said earlier, this will be available within the next day or two for you to look through and start acclimatizing yourself with it. It may change, as Joyce has said, if the government change the safety guidelines and the social distancing guidelines. We will quickly update the documents to match the government recommendations. So treat them as a draft at the moment as soon as you get them, and we will update them as soon as we know, and they'll all be on the COVID-19 website hub. There's places on the hub for clubs and members, and it's on these particular links that you will see things for members about the extension of the membership scheme, which means that everyone's membership will be extended for the period of the lockdown. If the lockdown lasts for 4 months, membership will be extended for the period. If your membership runs out in April, then you'll get an extra month. If it's May, it'll be 2 months. If it's June, you'll get 3 months. So we'll be extending all the memberships. You don't have to do anything. That will all be done automatically. and it's the same for clubs. Club registrations will be extended for the length of the lockdown, and all that information is on the COVID-19 website. Just want to mention something about insurance cover. You're only covered if your club is registered, if you're a current member and a valid coach. These are important, so make sure that your club registration is up to date, especially if you're a coach. Make sure your current membership is up to date, and if you're bringing members back, make sure they've got their membership up to date. And it says these memberships will be extended for the period of the lockdown. All the information, the British Judo Association insurance information and the cover is all on the BJA Insurance Centre, and the link is at the bottom here. You can access that through the British Judo Association website. Of course, renewing your membership now is important, and you need to renew your membership now if you're going to return to judo in order to qualify for the extended membership. If you don't renew your membership, of course, until after the lockdown, then there'll be no extension. As I say, now there are some clubs that are actually doing sessions, and these clubs are not covered by our insurance. If any incidents happen while they're running sessions that are out with the guidelines, automatically our insurance will be null and void. The guidelines that we have produced have been endorsed by our insurance company, and if you step outside these guidelines, then you're not going to be covered. So make sure that you take a notice of the revalidation, your coach qualification and your membership is all up to date. There's extensions in these things, and it's all available on our website. Okay. Last thing, there's lots of questions coming in. Some of the questions are too long to answer, so if you keep the questions quite short, I can type an answer. If we haven't answered them yet, we'll try and answer them live at the end of the webinar. So if we haven't answered them yet, that's because they require a longer answer, and we don't want to interrupt the presentation too much. So we'll try and pick up all the unanswered questions at the end. Joyce.
I like when I get control back, it's quite good. Colin doesn't normally let up his control, and so managed to get that today, which is a good thing. Just to add something to what Colin just said here, we're talking very much about indoor sport today. If you go onto the government guidelines, and Colin showed you a link earlier on, for outdoor sport, you can still coach at the moment, and you will be insured to coach 5 other people outside as long as you meet the government guidelines. Just to highlight that. Okay, so in terms of the mat distancing at the moment, if we look at spectators and parents first, we encourage you not to let them in the dojo unless you have enough space to ensure social distancing is maintained. And what we're asking here is anybody coming into the dojo that's a spectator or a parent, if this is allowed and it's relevant to your club size, they should be 2 meters apart from non-family members or the bubbles that they're living within at the moment or working with at the moment. Any spectators or parents should also, we should also ensure that they're at least 3 meters minimum from the mat edge. And that will allow for people to walk down as long, a meter for people to walk along, as well as them being 2 meters apart. In terms of the mat size, for over 12s, including the coach, we're asking, and this is at the moment, a minimum of 4 by 4 meters mat space is available for each person that's practicing in the club within this age range. And how you would set that up will be up to you. However, I would suggest that you can use tape to cordon off that 4x4 meter, so it's clear where that person can go on and practice on within the mat area itself. Or you may want to turn mats over either side of that 4x4 meters so that it's clear, as long as you do something that ensures it's clear to everybody on the mat. And that the same goes for under 12s. That'll be a 3x3 meter mat space. Again, make sure that the area is cordoned off in a way that it's clear to them where they can and can't go within the mat. And there'll also be guidelines around this contained in the main document with some recommendations on how to set this up and what it may look like for the club. In terms of mat cleansing within the document, we're giving you some recommendations when you're opening the dojo at first and in between sessions and post sessions, and how you should clean things and what type of solutions you may want to use. And basic disinfecting, if you look at point 8 here, it's recommending for mats that you use a pump spray, dilute a solution of disinfectant and water, and they recommend Dettol or another solution that deals with bacteria. So you'll be able to read through that at your leisure when it's available. And this is just a quick example of what your mat area may look like. So if you look on the right-hand side here, it's a 12 meter by 7 meter mat area. And you can see there's enough room, greens under 12s, there's enough room for 6 people to practice and the coach. So that's 7 in total. For that same size of mat area, you may only get 3 adults and 1 coach. And I know that's been a concern that's been raised with us on numerous occasions. How can the club survive if they don't have enough participants or members coming along to the club? Because you've got venue charges, and if it's your own venue, you'll have overheads. So you'll need to consider this as well when you go back. If you get 15 meter by 9 meters, then you'll be able to get 10 people, 10 young under 12s in, plus the coach, or 6 adults in the coach if they're over 12s. And there's more examples available in the document. In terms of the session content, I know most of you out there will probably be more interested in this than some of the other things. In terms of activities, anything you do, we're advising allows for maintaining social distancing. And within judo, and we're all familiar with this, it's contained in most of our warm-ups, shadow judo technique option, so shadow uchikomi, tai sabake and sukiashi type movements. Obviously, ukemi, judo break falls are recommended, so they should be as long as you stay within the area that you're using, and non-contact fitness activities, and these will be judo specific and non-judo specific. So maybe body weight exercises, or maybe using uchikomi bands or using dummies. And I'll just give you a wee overview. We will provide some session templates, and at the moment these are mainly look at 1st to 9th monitor, the Q equivalent. And I'll basically just give you some ideas of how you may structure your session. Now you can move about the session content and the session times to suit your venue and the time you have. These are just examples of what that may look like. And this is based on a 45-minute session. Most judo sessions at the moment sit between an hour and an hour and a half, but this allows you for 45 minutes. terms of equipment, I just reiterate what we've said before. Make sure anything that's been used within the dojo and on the mat is clean, and it's cleaned with recommended products to reduce the chance of any transmission of infection. And we know if the judo coach is on the mat themselves and they don't have anybody within the social bubble, they may need to use visual aids in order to give a good demonstration of what they're looking for, especially when you're using shadow uchikomi and shadow technique, where the players may be less experienced and not quite sure where you're going with it. May be pertinent to use some video to give them, to give them a good view of what that looks like. So during the session, basically here it's just ensuring that social distancing is maintained throughout the session itself, and that's whether you're on the mat or off the mat. If you go off the mat or any of your members go off the mat during the session, ensure that they know to put their shoes on and they know to hand wash or use antibacterial sanitizers before they come back on the mat. And again, just reiterate during the session, no contact should be made with anybody outside your own household or your own social bubble. And ensuring that spectators, you need to have somebody, either the coach or someone else from the club, to ensure that the spectators and the parents behaving the way that's expected of them. And I'm sure the majority will, and you won't have a problem there, but it's always good to have somebody overseeing that within the club itself. So post-session, and when we talk about post-session, I also want to include here what you would do in between the session. And in between the session, you need to ensure that you clean your dojo and any surfaces that have been touched before anybody else comes back into your dojo. And ensure that any bins are emptied at that point and ready for the new group coming in. And there's an estimated somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes for the average club to do this. If you're a bigger club, it may take you a bit longer. So you'll need to consider this in your planning. You'll need to clean between sessions and post sessions. And I think it would be pertinent to the coaches to advise players before they go home that if they exhibit any symptoms or if they've been in contact, find out they've been in contact with MDB COVID-19, that they alert the club as soon as possible so we can get the track and trace in place. When they leave the session, they must go home as soon as possible, no hanging about to meet other friends or come in contact with other people that may want to come along to the club for the next session. When they leave the club, they also abide by the social distancing guidelines when travelling from the judo club. When they get home, not just the players but the coach, ensure that they wash their judo kits thoroughly, their judo gi, at least 60 degrees, just to ensure that any potential virus, which hopefully they don't have on it, is dealt with appropriately. Again, make sure that the mats are cleaned, the whole, your mats and your venue are cleaned if you have your own venue, and advise your players to shower as soon as they arrive home. And that's relative to the coach as well, or related to the coach as well. We're recommending at this point not to shower at the venue. However, once we know what's happening indoors, then that may be possible with restrictions. Yeah, I'm just going to hand back over to Colin now to...
Okay, thanks for that, Joyce. What we're asking you to do is to read the documents carefully. They will be on the website within the next day or two, so don't worry if you can't find them at the moment. We're just publishing them in the next couple of days. So make sure that you read the documents carefully and try and follow the guidelines as closely as you can. And get in touch with us if you have any problems, and we'll see if we can help you. Can you click it, Joyce? I can't seem to get on. Oh, I got it now. We're asking you to make sure you prepare the club venue and consult with the venue owners, and that answers some of the questions that you've been asking online. You'll have to consult with the venue, the leisure centres and that, to make sure that you dovetail our guidelines with theirs. And for on the mat stuff, then we'll have to follow the BJA guidelines. But for the venue guidelines, it's probably controlled by the leisure centres or whoever owns the venue. And again, just make sure you follow the government and the BJA guidelines. We've been saying that all the way through, and that's really, really important. It's not just for everybody, it's for everybody's safety. It's not just judo people, because if you break these guidelines, these kids will be coming in and they'll be going home to people that may be sheltering older grandparents and things like that. So it's really, really important that we make sure everyone's safe. We talked about that. And Joyce has said that this information is all in the dojo, in the document. The club declaration form, before you start, make sure you sign the declaration form and send it to Sarah Walker at British Judo. And in the guidelines, there's information for parents and guardians for you to use. Now, we can supply you with Word documents so that you can modify them for your own use. But it's really, really important that you contact parents and guardians, informing them what they expect when they come to your first sessions. The difficulty is you'll have more than 10 kids in your club, and how you manage that, how you bring them in, how you don't, how you leave some out, will be difficult. And the sessions will be much shorter, and they'll be limited to sort of shadow uchikomi and things like that. And so the kids will not be used to that. They'll be used to playing games and interacting with each other. So it's important that you inform them what to expect when they turn up. And you have to make sure that they complete and sign the indemnity form. And you have to do this for every session, because it's important, because between sessions, they may have contact with someone with COVID. They may have had it when they come in. So that's really, really important. And again, just follow the BJA safeguarding guidelines, which you should be doing anyway. Okay, I'll hand back to Joyce.
Okay, thank you for that, Colin. So we're going to go back and do a little poll at the moment, and you've heard, we've taken you through the guidelines, so just like to ask you now, how confident are you that your clubs can return to judo safely? Just launching the poll now. Well, we're getting quicker at this now. A few more seconds. I think there's just about 8 of you. If you want to vote, you've got a few seconds left. I'm just going to end the poll now and share the results with you. So we've been doing a poll at the moment with coaches and technical officials, and based on what you've said today, the feeling out there is probably generally the same. We've got a high proportion of people that are reasonably to quite completely confident at getting back, but we also have this sort of large proportion of people that are not confident or slightly confident. And for us at British Judo, we take this seriously, and we need to look at what we can do to help you, to ensure that you come back and you feel supported by us. So thank you for that. That's very helpful information that helps us going forward. Okay, just some problems with my mouse there, sorry about that. So what does a phased return to judo look like? Well, at the moment, we've worked to put this into 5 phases. The first 3 phases of return are very much focused in club judo and getting people back into practicing. And the last 2 phases are about returning to competition. At this point in time, we're not sure what the timescales will be around this. However, I think it's important, it's crucial that we have something in place that we can amend going forward, rather than having nothing and scrambling at the end, trying to make sure that we look after judo properly out there. Today, we're just going to focus on the first phase. But if we go through the 5 phases, the first phase is shadow practice. The second phase is bringing in some nage-komi throwing practice. Second phase would be into situational randori. Fourth phase would be free practice randori. And at this point, we may, depending where we are at that point, we may be encouraging clubs to do some internal competition with small numbers of players, just to get them back into the swing of things and ready, preparing them to come back into full competition. We won't rush this. We'll basically move at the speed that the COVID-19 allows us to. So that's the 5 phases. So phase 1 will be shadow practice. So that will be by themselves, the player by themselves, or with other household members or bubble members, other people in their bubble. We said before, it'll be a 4x4 metre mat area for over 12s and a 3x3 metre for under 12s at this stage. And we've put here a maximum mat number of 10 and the coach, so that'll be 11 people on the mat. However, once we have the guidelines for indoor, this may change. It may be that we can have more people indoor, maybe less, and judo may make the decision that as a combat sport, that we, just for safety's sake, even not just as a combat sport, that we want people to be further apart. In terms of non-contact fitness, it'll be solo judo specific in general exercises you'll be able to work with there, and outdoor fitness at the moment and during phase 1 will be about adhering to social distancing rules. Okay, so just another poll here. Where best do you think British Judo can help support your return? Again, this information will be helpful for us as we prepare for the future return to judo. I'm just launching the poll now. I'd just like to start voting. Few seconds left. I'm just going to end the poll now. Thank you for that, and I'll share the results with you. So from here we can see probably a safe return to guidance. So the guidance is important to everybody. The cost in the environment, meeting the initial cost of creating a safe environment. That's where the club support grant may come in for you, or any local support grants, resources, and the support from our development officers. And it's interesting that nobody feels like they don't need any support. Again, we'll take these results and we'll look at how we can help you going forward. Thank you for that. And just, we're near the end of the presentation today. We're almost at the end of our hour. I would just to let you know here that we will be sharing important external links with you. So links with Sport England, with the government mental health and wellbeing, and Mind Wellbeing, which is it's a company that looks after mental health out there. We know there's a lot of people out there that have been affected by mental health issues at the moment during this time. So it's important for us to share some contacts with you and to help you with that. We'll also be setting up some links with internal contacts so that you as a club know exactly who and where to go going forward. Well, thanks for your patience today and allowing us to share where we are at the moment and how we're looking to support you going forward. So I'll hand over to Colin if you have any questions out there, Colin. We won't get through them all. We've just got a couple of minutes left. So.
Okay, so I might ask you to answer them, Joyce. There's a lot of questions about siblings. Yep. And whether that we can have two people from the same family working together. And the initial response was not in phase 1. Would that be correct?
No, if you have two siblings, as long as you allocate both of them a 3 by 3 meters, if they're under 12, they will be able to do some practice as long as they stay within that area.
Okay, does that apply in phase 1?
Yes.
Okay.
With a word of caution to make sure that they're not interfering with anybody else and there's no randori.
Okay. There's quite a few questions about that. There's some questions about training outside. Can 2 coaches deliver an outside session to 10 players if social distancing is maintained?
At the moment, we're going with government guidelines, which is 1 coach and 5 players, 6 people in total together.
Okay.
So I suppose the answer to that is we're not recommending that at the moment, unless they're in a different area and they're well spread out. Okay,
this is probably a question for Andrew. There's a few questions about the cost of signage. Would BJA be considering bulk buying of these to spread the cost for clubs?
Yeah, I picked that one up off the questions, Colin. I think, yes, we'll probably do that. I think it's much easier if we can bulk buy and then distribute, probably someone that we will look at.
Okay. There's some questions that are difficult to answer, and we'll try and pick them up offline, and because they may require a much more detailed answer than we can give them. A couple that we'd have to check with the insurance company to see if it was allowed. There's one from what's the protocol for coaches if they're told a player has come in contact with COVID-19? Do we have to close the class for 14 days, ask the players to get tested, or do we provide their details to NHA track and trace?
At the moment, we'll be providing the details to the NHS, the track and trace at the moment, and we'd advise if it's your own dojo, then basically anybody that's been in that dojo shouldn't re-enter it for that period of time. However, as long as the dojo itself is deep cleaned and it's people that have not come in, they've not been in contact with, I don't see any reason why they can't, as long as the deep cleaning has taken place and everything's been dealt with from that perspective. And it's a different set of people, that's a different coach that's not been in contact with anybody, and different players. That would be my...
Do the members need to complete indemnity forms for training outside?
We recommend, yes, for track and trace purposes.
Okay. Okay, there's a few questions that we will have to discuss offline and get back to you. Okay, I think that's them all.
I'd just like to end then by thanking everybody for coming along. I don't know if, Andrew, if you get anything to add?
No, I think you'll find the documentation you discussed today is now on the website. So that's there under the COVID-19, a safe return to judo. So you'll be able to see it there, but just on the proviso that it's in advance of any government release. These are draft documents that you're able to access and prepare. We will do the official document once the government give us the go-ahead. So please take them with, it's a draft document, and that's where we're directing. And obviously you've had this conversation webinar this morning. But thanks for all attendance. Nice to see 93 of you in here, and thanks for Joyce and Colin.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.